Our movie starts in 1983 with astronauts Konstantin and Krill, who are from the Soviet Union, are on a space mission. And by the way, the Russians used to call their astronauts cosmonauts, which was a Soviet thing. So, our two boys were on a space mission, and when they were coming back to Earth, they hear this sound coming from outside the spacecraft. And they also see something through the window, and then their spacecraft starts to malfunction and they crash on Soviet Kazakhstan. When the medics arrive, they only see Konstantin, who survived, and they find him bleeding everywhere, especially from his mouth. And then the medics take him to a secure military base. And in Moscow, Dr. Tatyana, a psychiatrist, is under review for her very controversial methods of helping people. And the board tells her that she needs to acknowledge her guilt and accept dismissal, or she'll be forced to send her files to the prosecutor's office. And Tatyana argues that she did the right thing to help some boy that she used her very unusual methods on, and that she won't acknowledge any guilt because there isn't any. And a colonel by the name of Simerdov was watching the meeting from above, and once they finish, he goes and talks to Tatyana, and he tells her that he needs her help on his patient. And she asks him if this is an invitation or an order, and he tells her that she would find this case very interesting. And he also tells her not to worry about the review board. And Tatyana agrees to go, and they go to this secure military base. And Simerdov tells her that the government have been lying to the people about the astronauts, and that there was a problem when they were coming back to Earth. And he tells her that only Konstantin has survived, but he doesn't remember what happened on the spacecraft, and they suspect he's suffering from some kind of episodic amnesia. And once they get to the military base, she sees Konstantin have been put in quarantine by another doctor, Dr. Yan, and he's using hypnosis to try to make Konstantin remember what happened. And Konstantin tells him that he sees a blue thing, and when Yan asks him to describe it, Konstantin tells him that he actually saw a blue whale. And Dr. Yan obviously gets mad because Konstantin is just playing games with him, and he just leaves the room. And the colonel asks Tatyana if she could do something to help, and Tatyana goes into the room, and when Konstantin sees her, he's pretty surprised, and he asks her why she's here, and she offers him tea, and she tells him she's here to help him. And Konstantin tells her that if she really wants to help him, she should just call his mom and tell her that he's okay, cause his mom lives alone and she worries. And Tatyana leaves the room, and she tells Sirmidov and Yan that Konstantin actually has PTSD, and that keeping him a prisoner is worsening it very much. And after telling them this, she really wanted to leave this base, but Sirmidov tells her to stay the night, and one of the guards escorts her to her room. But right around midnight, Sirmidov calls Tatyana and he takes her to this lab again. And Konstantin was asleep at this point, and all of a sudden, he starts choking and something starts crawling out of his mouth. And Tatyana gets close enough to see what's going on, and she sees this alien parasite that just came out of Konstantin. She panics, obviously, and she runs out of the lab, and Sirmidov catches up to her, and he tells her that since Konstantin came back from space, he also brought a little present with him. The present being the very disgusting and weird alien parasite. He also tells her that the alien comes out around the same time, and it goes back in after taking some oxygen. And this parasite doesn't harm its host, and when it wants to come out, it just sends chemicals that makes Konstantin sleep. And the alien is not actually a parasite per se, because once it's inside Konstantin, it makes him incredibly strong and resilient. And that's why Konstantin was able to survive the very horrific crash. And Tatyana obviously asks the colonel if Konstantin himself knows what happens at night, and the colonel tells her that he doesn't, and the colonel also tells her that he needs her to find out what actually happened in space and how this came to be, and he also needs her to save Konstantin. And Tatyana agrees, and she asks for all the footage they have of Konstantin, and at this point, the only thing they know is that the parasite cannot survive on its own. And that makes it pretty hard to determine if this alien is a parasite or a symbiote. A symbiote is like this thing that actually helps the host. And Tatyana also starts investigating Konstantin's personal life. And from a lot of investigation, she figures out that he actually has a son. And after the son's mother died, the son ended up in an orphanage. And the next morning, she goes to Konstantin to talk to him, and she tells him that the reason he's not getting out of quarantine is because the military believe that he's insane and that he may have killed his partner. And Konstantin gets pissed off by this comment, and Tatyana asks him what he thinks of himself. And he tells her that he believes he's a Soviet hero, would never abandon his son. And after saying that, she just leaves the room and she finds Dr. Yan, who's very pissed off at her, and she tells him that she purposefully wanted to make Konstantin angry to measure his hormone levels. And she wants to do that because she thinks the alien is affected by his hormones. And she also recommends to Sermadov to let Konstantin have a normal room so he can feel relaxed, and then they can track his progress. And the colonel accepts her request, and they let Konstantin leave the quarantine room, and they give him a normal room in the compound. And Konstantin, in his new room, starts watching TV, and he finds out that the government is actually telling everyone that the astronauts landed safely on Earth, and they're now in a rehabilitation center for 3 weeks. And Tatyana visits Konstantin again, and she apologizes for what she did. And he tells her that he didn't really know anything about his son. He didn't even know that the woman was pregnant. And when she died, the authorities called him and told him when he was just about to leave for the mission. And he now has plans after quarantine to actually go and see his son for the first time. And Konstantin asks her why she's here and what the colonel wants from him, and she tells him that she can't actually divulge that information, but she's gonna do everything she can to help him. And that night, as Konstantin fell asleep, he's taken back to the lab again, and the alien comes out around the same time. And Tatyana has the guts this time to actually look closer at the alien, and she sees it staring at this toy that Konstantin had in his spacecraft. And she decided to get inside and interact with this alien using this toy, and Dr. Yan thought this was a horrible idea, and just for the record, so did I, but the colonel tells her that she can actually get inside if she wears a protective suit. And the alien at first is a bit calm and it just starts staring at the toy, and then it jumps at her and it injures her leg. And the guards immediately rush in and they pull her out, and from her interaction with the alien, Tatyana tells the colonel that Konstantin is not actually unconscious. And every time the alien is out, Konstantin is kind of sort of awake because the alien and Konstantin share a consciousness, and the alien can somehow feel Konstantin's guilt. But the alien also ends up blunting some of Konstantin's memories, and that's why he can't remember some things. And she also tells him that the alien is actually adapting to our environment, and every time he goes out of Konstantin, it's spending more time on the outside. And at some point, the alien is not gonna need Konstantin anymore. And Tatyana also talks about how they need to go to Moscow right now for better treatment, otherwise Konstantin is gonna die. And Sirmadov tells her that the government doesn't even know about Konstantin or this alien, and if they did know, they'd have both of them killed because that's what governments do. They're like, shoot first, ask questions later, especially the Soviet Union. And Tatyana has also noticed something that she doesn't want the colonel to know about, so she talks to Dr. Yan about it. And she confronts him and she asks him why the alien gets really strong at night. And Dr. Yan tells her he doesn't know why that happened. And she asks him what the alien eats, because on the file that they had, it says that the alien, the parasite, eats what Konstantin eats. But Tatyana knows that that's a lie. And to coerce Dr. Yan into telling her the truth, she tells him that she'll actually get him a Nobel Prize if he tells her the truth, and that the colonel doesn't need to know about this. And so, Dr. Yan, eager to become famous and rich, because apparently they pay you a lot of money when you win a Nobel Prize? Yeah. Anyways, eager for that, he takes Tatyana into a secure area, and he hides her in the trunk of his car, and after they sneak inside, Dr. Yan gives her a camera, and Tatyana watches a video of Konstantin being taken to a secure room while he was asleep. And she sees a prisoner forced by guards and thrown into the same room as him. And the alien eventually comes out of Konstantin and he eats the prisoner's head. And after she sees this, Dr. Yan takes her back to the main compound and he tells her that the alien can't eat other animals aside from humans. And the alien doesn't just need to kill the human. It actually has to make the human fearful so that the human brain releases a lot of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and it needs to do that because it needs to find that hormone inside the brain when it eats it. Basically, the alien feeds off human cortisol. And she asks him why they're doing this, and he tells her that he has nothing to do with this. All of this is just the colonel's plan, and he's the one pushing prisoners to die by an alien. And in the morning, Tatyana goes to Konstantin's room and she asks him to go for a run. And as they were jogging in the compound, once they were out of direct surveillance, Tatyana tells him the truth, and that there is an alien inside of him that feeds on human brain. And Konstantin then tells her to meet during the night so that they can talk freely. And that night, Konstantin fakes taking his sleeping pills, and once the guards leave, he meets up with Tatyana. And she takes him to a room and she shows him the people that the alien ate. I mean, the rest of them, at least, because the alien just only ate the head. dead. She also shows him that his partner's not dead, but is in a coma. And then Konstantin throws a bombshell on all of us, and he tells her that he knows that the alien eats people, and that he remembers everything that the alien does. And she asks him why he didn't say anything, and he tells her that in 2 weeks the review board from Moscow will come and he'll be released from quarantine, and then he'll finally get to see his son. And Tatyana was very shocked by this, and she asks Konstantin if he's okay with people dying just to benefit himself. And she tells him that maybe the aliens chose him instead of his partner because Konstantin is really selfish. And while she was going back to her room, she gets stopped by the colonel, and he tells her that he wasn't actually honest with her, and he tells her everything. And he also tells her that he's actually planning to use the alien as a weapon once they can gain control over him. And she asks him if it's worth killing a lot of people for this, and the colonel tells her that these people are not people, and it's revealed that these prisoners are actually really bad people that raped and killed a lot of children, and one of them actually raped and killed a 12-year-old girl, and he really did deserve to be killed by an alien. I actually agree with him on this one. And after telling her all of this, he asks her to help him control the alien and save Konstantin, and he also tells her that he will take full responsibility if Moscow ever found out, and she can just say that she was forced to help. And she tells him that she does want to help, and she tells him that she can also find a way to separate Konstantin from the alien, but the colonel tells her to just focus on controlling it for now. And the next morning, Tatyana calls Jan to the lab, and she tells him the reason that the alien chose Konstantin instead of his partner Krill. And that is because Krill had this condition called Addison's disease. It's a form of cancer. And Tatyana continues to talk to Dr. Jan, and she tells him that the alien is not compatible with the cancer, and that she's figured out a way to simulate the cancer so that it can separate from its host, Konstantin. And then she starts talking to him in Latin. I know, right? Like, who speaks Latin? Anyways, she starts speaking Latin, and she tells him her plan to escape with Konstantin today, and for Dr. Jan to help her by calling Moscow and telling them everything that happened. And Jan agrees to this, and they knock out one of the guards in the lab, and they take a syringe that contains the fake cancer, and they run to Konstantin's room. And once she gets to Konstantin, she tells him the plan, and she also tells him that once the alien is out of his body, the alien will have about an hour to survive, but he will have longer, and by that time, she'll just get him to a hospital and he'll survive. And Konstantin at this point was feeling really bad about what he did. You know, the whole I knew that the alien inside of me was eating prisoners and I did nothing about it because I wanted to see my son issue. Yeah, and because of that, he just thought that he needed to be punished, and he just says, no, I'm not gonna go anywhere. I deserve to be killed. And Tatyana tries to comfort him. She gives him a hug, and she actually tells him his son's name, Loisha. And she also mentions that this kid is gonna turn 7 in a week, and he's gonna need to have his father around for his birthday. And Konstantin is convinced, and he agrees to leave, and Jan gives them his car, and she asks him to escape with them, but he tells her that he'll be okay because he's already called Moscow and he's ratted on everybody. And the colonel gets wind of their escape, and he sends his team to stop them. And then Konstantin takes the syringe and injects himself, and then the alien comes out of him and he kills all of the colonel's men. And Tatyana and Konstantin then leave the alien there, and they get into their car and leave the compound. But before they can get far, Konstantin starts collapsing, and Tatyana realizes that Konstantin and the alien have become symbiotic, and one without the other cannot survive. And the colonel catches up to them, and apparently he's also caught the alien and put him in a cage. And then he takes it out of the cage and tries to make it eat Tatyana. And when it was about to, Konstantin, with his last dying breath, tries to control the alien, and he actually convinces the alien to eat the colonel. To actually kill the colonel, but pretty much the same thing. And then the alien goes back to Konstantin, and he starts healing instantly. And the Moscow authorities are getting close to them, and Tatyana tells Konstantin that she'll find a way to separate him and the alien. And he tells her that he believes her, and he knows that she has the best of intentions. And he starts stroking her hair, and then he takes a gun and he shoots himself in the gut, killing both himself and the alien. And on the last scene, we see Tatyana going back to Moscow, and she actually adopts Konstantin's son. And we also find out that she was actually an orphan, and that's why she cared so much when she found out that Konstantin abandoned his kid. Yeah, and that is how this amazing Russian movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.